friends, welcome or welcome back to the Marketing Nomad YouTube channel. Today we are going to be doing a walkthrough of the Pulp Tarot. All right, very fascinating deck. I gotta say, this caught my attention right off the bat. The Pulp Tarot is by Todd Alcott, and what I'm gonna be doing in this video is I'm gonna be doing a walkthrough of the cards. I'm also going to be telling you how I have personally connected with the deck, when do I use this deck, and my overall thoughts about the deck as well. Without further ado, I'm going to kind of read the back and then we'll get into the walkthrough, all right? So first off, it says a dynamic two-fisted approach to the tarot. The Pulp Tarot gives the traditional tarot card deck a new twist, with a cast of characters captured from the glorious repository of pulp illustration, ready to unleash the secret forces pulsing vibrantly within every living soul and lay bare the squirming, throbbing life within. Colorful, intriguing, and complex, the Pulp Tarot was created with only one goal in mind: to guide your questing soul from darkness to light. The Pulp Tarot, 78 sensational cards, thrilling major arcana, hard-boiled minor arcana, fast-paced instruction book, describes every card in dramatic detail. Todd Alcott has been a playwright, monologuist, I hope I pronounced that correctly, screenwriter, actor, and filmmaker, and is now a graphic artist living in Southern California. He's known on the internet for his cultural mashups that reimagine popular songs as covers of paperback novels, movie posters, magazine covers, and other 20th century ephemera. The Unemployed Philosophers Guild, all right, Brooklyn, New York. All right. The deck by itself, oh my gosh, so quirky, so quirky. All right, hold on, I'm trying to show it to you. I'm trying to get it to focus on that rather than me. Though I enjoy being in the focus, but I guess this one is more. Oh wait, no, hold on. All right, really quirky. Let's get into it, okay? I've got so many thoughts about this particular deck, and I love it. I mean, the attention to detail just on the cover of this particular deck, you know, all of these, can you see these lines? You know, just, it's very true to the genre, and I'm enjoying it. I'm really enjoying this deck. Without further ado, let's get into it. All right, let's get more details about it as well. So let's get into Todd Alcott's The Pulp Tarot. All right, so the box by itself, it kind of looks like it is a wooden block, but it's actually cardboard. And the artwork on top of the box, I mean, it is classic pulp fiction, you know, the halftone fading, the paper discoloration, the creases, the scuffs, the ink bleed, a little bit of, you know, the misalignment of that ink, and the very grainy texture. You know, all of these very classic art from the old magazines, the book covers, and the posters from that period of time, and I absolutely love it. It does give that pulp fiction feel just as you pick up the box. So after you open the box, the first thing that you will see is the little white book, or they call it the guidebook, I guess. Now, I personally really liked the guidebook. To be honest, sometimes my pet peeves with guidebooks is that even though the artist has done such an amazing job with the artwork, they don't really write their thought process in the guidebook, and it's just very generic. And I've seen that with certain tarot decks, because I really want to, like, as a tarot reader, I really want to kind of get into the mind of the artist. Like, what were you thinking when you drew this, or when you put this in? You know, how was your thought process like? Why did you include this? I want to know more of that information, you know. And some tarot decks, as beautiful as the works are, it's so generic, and I feel a little bit disheartened. But with this particular book, even though it's so small, I love that I can actually get into Todd Alcott's mind. You know, there is such clear points about how he wanted the design to look, why he included that specific design for that particular card, for that particular meaning. And I absolutely loved it. It's a very, very quick read. I have taken the time to read it, and frankly, it makes for a very, very fun read as well. It's light, it is not heavy, and you can actually just finish it in one sitting, which is also another thing that I particularly liked about this guidebook as well. So now let's get deeper into the Pulp Tarot. There is definitely, as you can see from the imagery over here, there's a distinct combination of like pulp fiction aesthetics as well as your classic tarot symbolism. So now let's get into the actual deck. Now, most decks that you see out there, they're a lot to do with like maybe medieval, occult, esoteric themed, right? However, this particular deck is styled from the mid-20th century pulp magazines and also crime novels and even sci-fi horror book covers. I found that absolutely fascinating, and I'll get deeper into why I found that fascinating in just a little bit. Now, each of the images on each card, they are basically collages, and they reinterpret the vintage imagery from like classic pulp covers. And I find that it is very, very bold, it is very, very dramatic, and there's just this cinematic feel to the cards. All right, so I absolutely love that Todd Alcott is kind of given such a fresh interpretation of the traditional RWS deck, and he's kind of put it into pop culture context. Now, each card, it tells a story, and I absolutely love that about this deck. Each card is kind of like a story that's been frozen in time, whether it's a crime novel or from a detective story or an adventure, there's stories that are building from each card that you see. And I in particular find this to be very, very helpful, especially when I am trying to tap into my intuition, especially when I am trying to understand maybe a story narrative about some questions that I have about life, about my personal life, or even other aspects as well. So this really helps me kind of tap into that aspect of what tarot can offer. And also, in each card, there are so many different elements that you can actually kind of tap into. Some of them do resonate with the traditional RWS deck, but most of the elements that are there on the card actually are fresh elements. So it kind of gives you like a very, very new perspective. It also helps you connect differently to the card as well. And if you resonate with like pop culture, vintage aesthetics, or even just like storytelling elements, I really think that this deck would be helpful for you. Now, when I talked about the story style theme, right, there's one particular thing that really stood out to me, and that is the narrative behind each of these cards. It's very, very different from the traditional RWS deck. Yes, the elements do match, but there is a fun twist in almost every other card that I've picked. And I'll give you an example. So the Three of Pentacles is about hard work, right? It's about teamwork. It's about working with someone, building something together as a team, and all of you put in the hard work, right? Now, the Three of Pentacles in this particular deck is actually a bunch of thieves planning a heist, and that is such a brilliant perspective when it comes to teamwork, because that too is teamwork, right? That too requires precision. It requires hard work from every team member. And I thought that was amazing. And I feel that this particular deck doesn't shy away from the shadow aspect of human nature. As much as we would like to kind of stay on the lighter side, there are aspects to human nature that, it kind of comes out sometimes, even though you've been working on yourself. And I feel that this particular deck helps you tap very, very gently into those aspects, because there is that fun, there's that humor that comes in as well. I think that it is gentle on you while also showing you that, hey, this might be something, this might be an aspect of you that you might want to kind of take a deeper look at, or you might want to consider a little bit more. So for me, how I use this particular deck, of course, when it comes to my clients, there are specific questions that I feel called to pull this deck, and I've been using it for quite some time now. From the time that I shot this unboxing to me recording the audio over it, yeah, it's been quite some time, and I've been using it. I think it's been a couple of months, maybe, I think 2 months, 2 or 3 months, not more than that. Yeah, not more than 3 months, but even so, I've been using it for my clients. I've been using it for myself as well. And at first, I felt called to use this deck for certain questions, and I didn't understand why until I kind of paused and I kind of tried to understand why I was kind of intuitively called to this particular deck for certain questions. And I've actually come to an understanding of why that is, and I'm here to share it with you. So for me, this particular card deck shines when I want to understand a story, when I want to understand a narrative behind something, when I want to make sense out of something. That is when the visual storytelling elements of these cards actually shine, and they help you really tap into the deeper understanding, and it helps your intuition connect the story. So for me, I've used it for personal growth and self-discovery, especially, the story that each card tells. It helps me understand my human nature as well, because it is so beautifully depicted in the cards. Another aspect that I find myself using this deck is for problem solving, because the answers come through in a story format. The answers come through in a narrative format. So it can really help with solving problems, or it can even help you with decisions, because there is a story there. You can try to identify, okay, what's the moral of the story, or how does that story progress? How can that relate to the problem that I'm facing right now, or the decision that I have to make? And that's one way that I have found this deck to be really helpful for me. Another way is social dynamics, relationships, personal, romantic. There are different aspects that are covered in these cards, in these cards. And I find that it helps me understand stories behind social dynamics as well. So that's another aspect that I have found this particular card deck to be very, very useful. And of course, I kind of talked to you about shadow work. It does help with shadow work, and it's very, very gentle compared to other shadow work decks that I have kind of been familiar with. This one's very, very gentle because there is, like I said before, there is a slight layer of humor and that lightheartedness to even the shadow aspects that they portray in the cards. And it's not to make light of the shadow aspects, it's so that the messages come through to you in a gentle way so that you can focus on it, but you're not too harsh on yourself. And that is something that I really, really like about Todd Alcott's mind over here. And some of the themes that are covered in these cards are like mystery, crime, then there's shadow aspects of human nature that come through because of those aspects as well. And for me, I think that this card can really help with shadow self, with your subconscious motivations as well, because there's a lot deeper. Even if there is a story narrative that's there on top, there are a lot of deeper layers that you can actually uncover if you spend more time with the cards as well. And for me, I like that it helps me tap into how my subconscious works as well. Now it kind of shows a mirror to me, but at the same time is very, very gentle. So if you're kind of into shadow work, I would recommend this deck because it actually does give you a very, very beautiful and very, very intricate detailing about all aspects of the human nature, not just one. All right. And another way that you could probably use this deck would be I'm a writer, right? And for me, sometimes it does help with, certain aspects that I want to kind of get a story narrative from. Regardless of the subject that you're writing, I do feel that this helps you tap into that side of your brain, the one that helps you make connections, the one that helps you kind of connect one detail to another and then form a story between that. So this really helps you with that. If you are writing crime or mystery novels or, even sci-fi and horror, these cards could actually help you with your storyline as well. There's definitely a sense of drama that comes through with the reading of these cards. It's definitely there. I feel it. And for me, I've always, kind of called myself like a drama queen. I'm obsessed with, Bollywood and the dramatization, the cinematic feel. I've always been very, very inclined. So for me to have that feeling come through in tarot readings, oh my gosh, it is just brilliant. It is just beautiful. And I love that Todd Alcott has been able to tap into that energy for us. So there's definitely some kind of theatrics. Every time I use this deck, there's always like something that comes to my mind, and I was like, okay, that was a little bit dramatic, but maybe I needed to hear it in that way. And that usually comes through. There's of course that cinematic feel. There is humor as well to the cards. There's a subtle layer of lightheartedness, which I feel that Todd Alcott was actually very, very intentional about, because he kind of understood that, like the way that he's mentioned it, I think that he really intentionally wanted there to be a layer of the cards where you're not taking it too seriously, but at the same time you are tapping into the energy of the cards to show you what you need to know, the knowledge and the wisdom that you wish to gain at that point in time from the deck. So I really think that he's done such a beautiful balance of the two. It's very, very I would say a very healthy card deck, because one, it's not harsh on you at all, but at the same time, it lets you know what you need to know at that point in time. And number three, it kind of shows you aspects of yourself that you may have kind of rejected or you may have been ashamed about, but the way that it comes through in the cards is that it's an aspect of you, yes. It is something that, you need to make note of, you need to shift, yes, but at the same time, there is nothing to be ashamed about it. That is one aspect that I've really loved about these cards, because it does not downgrade any aspect of your human nature, whether it is light or shadow. But at the same time, it brings it to your attention so that you can work on it. It is very, very gentle. I feel that the card deck is very, very gentle in that respect. But the messages that it comes through, yeah, it's clear. It's very, very clear, especially from this particular deck. Now, if you look at the aesthetics, it's visually bold. I mean, the very, very classic Pulp Fiction artwork coming through. There's high contrast colors. It is striking. And for me in particular, when I started using this deck, it does take a little bit of practice to start focusing on the imagery that is on this card deck rather than the traditional RWS deck. So it took me a little while to kind of shift that thought process, because there are certain elements that come through very, very strongly when you are reading tarot, right? And it's mostly coming from the traditional RWS deck. But whereas in this particular card deck, there are certain elements that are twisted or completely, taken in a different interpretation. And it takes some time to shift that perspective. It takes some time to focus on the imagery that the cards are having, the story that the card wants you to tell, and kind of take you away from what the traditional RWS deck does say. I would say that if you are starting out with tarot, it is important for you to at least know the meanings behind the traditional RWS deck before you get into this particular deck, because I think that it needs that base before you hop into this. You can't directly hop into this, but I would say that if you know the symbolism, the meanings behind the traditional RWS deck, then yes, it does take a little bit of practice though to shift into understanding this particular deck and the messages that want to come through for this. It does take a little bit of time. It does take a little bit of practice, but you will get there. All right. So I guess for beginners, there's just a little bit more of a learning curve. If you are experienced, for me, there were different aspects that were jumping out to me, and I kind of doubted myself first when the messages were coming through. Like I said, right, with the Three of Pentacles, it's like a thieves planning a heist. It's different, but at the same time, it actually resonates with the theme of the card. And for that, the messages that come through are very, very interesting, very, very fresh, very, very different. And it takes a while to accept those messages as well, as just a tarot reader, and especially one who, especially me, if I have to say, multiple decks that I have tapped into the energy, I've been very, very lucky to tap into the energy of those decks. With this particular one, it took me some time to make that shift, to kind of steer away from the traditional RWS deck and kind of focus on what this card or these cards were trying to tell me in particular with what was on them. So I would say learning curve is a little bit with respect to this card, but it's just more of an intentional shift. And I think that the more time you spend with these cards, the shift automatically happens. Like for me, it's been 3 months now, I would say. About 2.5 to 3, yeah, about 2.5 to 3 months since me using this particular deck for myself, for my clients. I would say that now it is a subconscious switch that happens, but it took time. I did take at least a couple of readings for me to be comfortable with myself reading it for myself, and then I started doing it for clients, but it took some time to make that shift for me. But today it's easier. Today I can immediately, when the cards come out, I'm able to make that connect. I'm able to shift out of the traditional RWS narration in my head and then just focus on what the cards are telling me. Of course, you can kind of combine it with what the traditional RWS deck tells you for that particular card. But I have found it work both ways. I can completely abandon that and then just focus on the messages on this, or I can mix the two. It really depends on what your intuition is telling you at that point in time, what you feel called to do, but it works both ways, and it has worked both ways for me as well. All right. And yeah, I gotta tell you, I mean, it is this particular card deck, even with respect to shuffling and the experience, I mean, it's flexible. The cardstock is very, very durable. There's kind of like this gloss finish, I would say, like a very, very soft gloss finish that kind of helps with your shuffling as well. And for me, all in all, I would say that this is a great card deck, like a tarot card deck. If you are looking for something that is wild, it is dramatic and exaggerated with that cinematic, wow, don't know why I struggle with that word, with that cinematic feel, that theatrical reading, and more importantly, if you are looking for a card deck that can help you create a story or help you with your story making, or can help you with your decision-making process by giving you different narratives, then this card deck is definitely for you. I would say go for it. Don't think twice about it, all right? The way that I see it is it helps you see your life from a very, very fresh, interesting, and story-like perspective, which I feel each of our lives, we are living stories at this point in time. And I think that that is captured very, very beautifully by this deck as well. All right. So that brings me to the end of this kind of unboxing and review that I have going on of Todd Alcott's The Pulp Tarot. It's a beautiful deck. I find it very, very new and interesting and exciting. I personally keep reaching out to it every time I feel like I want deeper information. I want the story behind something. Yeah, that's when I usually feel called to pick up this deck and try to understand the meanings that wish to come through from it. The energy of the deck is very, very light, very, very positive, very, very healthy even. And I wish for you to tap into the energy of that deck if it resonates with you, all right? So this is where I will leave you for today. Thank you so much for watching all the way up until here. If you like this video, please do give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button for more videos like this. Alrighty, take care, and I will catch you in my next one. Bye-bye.